Hey, welcome back. It's Kelly. I am your host of the Rewiring Health podcast. And today we're talking about something that has plagued me for years. And it was only until I developed a system that it didn't have the impact that it did for much of my life. And what I'm talking about is negative thinking. And if you are listening to this, odds are that you have experienced negative thinking in your life. I can't tell you how many times I woke up in the morning and I would just think of everything that I was worried about during the day, things that I had to take care of at my job, or a future conversation I'd have to have, or one that I had in my past that would replay in my mind, and think about everything that was really bothersome about that. And I would just have these negative thoughts that would just play out in my head. And then sometimes even just random things of just like worrying about people I cared about, or just having all these like images of what could possibly happen. And it just became just menacing after a while, where I deeply wanted to think about something else, but I just kept having the same thoughts over and over and over again. And it would just make me crazy after a while. And I noticed it happened mostly in the mornings and then right before I would go to bed. And if you have experienced this, you know exactly how crazy that can make you feel, where you just want to go to bed, but your mind is going 100 miles per hour, just thinking of all these things that you would really rather not think about. And so, what I want to share with you today are 3 steps that you can take so that you can stop thinking so negatively and you can start rewiring your brain to bring more joy into your life and feel more peace and at ease. But before I get into what we need to do and what are the steps, I just want to share you, like, why is that? Why are we so driven towards negative thinking? Because this is a pretty common experience. And most people, I would say, have a negatively driven brain. And it really comes down to the way we are wired. We are wired for protection. And so even though we have evolved, our brains are still very primitive. And so back in the day when we had our brains that were developed, they were wired in a way that they could scan the environment and perceive any possible threat. So if we were out in a cave and there was a lion outside, we could scan and see that, like, that's a threat. We need to focus on that because that could compromise our safety. And so our brain literally got wired to look at anything that was possibly a threat. Now, living in the modern age, for most people who are listening to this, a lion outside your door is not a common threat anymore. But what are threats that we experience? Threats are emails that we have to deal with. Threats are maybe our boss that we constantly are in conflict with. Threats are the traffic that we have to deal with. Threats are the financial worries that maybe you have. They are all the things that make us feel that we're not safe and secure. And so our brain becomes uber focused on all those things. And unfortunately, it's not as easy to escape because we have our phones in front of us. We have the news. We have people sharing negative things with us. So we're constantly getting programmed to worry about our own safety. And so the more we think about it, the more our brain gets wired to think about that. So whatever you focus on expands. And so unfortunately, it becomes this very vicious cycle that if you tend to think more negatively, your brain actually gets wired to have those circuits act more efficiently, which means that you are even more wired to think negatively. So it's literally just this vicious cycle of continuing the negative thought. Are you the person who says yes, even though you want to say no? Are you the person who puts your own needs and wants last behind the demands of your work and everyone else in your life? If you answered yes to any of these, you may be self-abandoning, and it does not come without a cost. If you want to know if you're self-abandoning for achievement, take my free quiz in the show notes. And again, the experience of that can be really, really taxing and draining for your energy. And it can feel like every day is just an effort to get through. And so I speak from experience because that literally is how I felt for years. And I didn't even think it was possible to stop changing my brain. I thought there was something that was wrong with me, why do I tend to have such negative thoughts? Like, I don't consciously want to have these, but they keep seeming to come into my brain. And it was only when I started to create a process and take control of that is when I actually started to rewire my brain and not experience the unrelenting rumination of negativity. So that's what I want to share with you today. It's a 3-step process that has literally changed my whole mind and the way my mind thinks. And I want to preface this with the fact that this is not saying that you will never have negative thoughts again. That is not reality. I still have negative thoughts. But the difference is that they do not dominate my mind anymore. And I am able to move through them. I am able to not be pulled down by them as deeply. And I am able to have a system in place to get myself into a better place quicker. So I want you to remember this acronym, IRA, and it's not the investment account for this one, but IRA. And so I'm going to go through each of these so that you can use these steps the next time you get stuck in a cycle of negative rumination. So I is interrupter. So like I said, this becomes a very vicious cycle. So you need something to interrupt the cycle. And so I'm going to give you 2 things that you can do that can interrupt the cycle. The first one is just asking the question, is it true? So if you're having a negative thought going on, maybe it's self-doubt creeping in saying, oh, you'll never be able to do that business. Oh, that won't work out for you. Who are you to do that project or take on this big challenge? The first thing you want to do is say, is that true? So that just becomes an interrupter. So changing the dialogue that's going on in your head. Another way you can do that is tap into your senses. So actually using your body to interrupt the mind. So again, say you're having that negative rumination. In that moment, bring yourself into your body and start tapping into your senses. So you would recognize 5 things that you see in your environment. And then you would recognize 4 things that you feel. So maybe you were able to feel your desk, your butt sitting on the chair. Maybe you can kind of feel the shirt. You can feel what the mouse of your computer feels like. And then you're going to start noticing things that you smell and that you taste and that you hear in your environment. So start tapping into the senses around you. Again, the whole purpose is just to interrupt what is going on in your mind already. R is going to be rewire. So at this point, once you've interrupted the cycle of negativity, now you need to create a different pattern of thinking. And that can be in the form of gratitude. So in that moment, after you've interrupted it, think of something you're grateful for. Maybe it was that you got a big hug from your child this morning. Maybe it was a delicious lunch you just had, or the hot coffee this morning, or the breeze on your face as you were walking into work. Whatever it is, just think of something that you are grateful for. Think of a few things that you're grateful for. Gratitude has so much power in rewiring the brain and reshaping the connections of the brain and where you direct your thoughts. So there's a lot of power in gratitude. The next one is A. So A is for ask. So ask a different question. Tony Robbins said the amplitude of your life is based on the questions that you ask yourself. So where you are going is based on the questions that you were literally asking yourself. So if you continue to ask yourself, what else could go wrong? You will only get the answer of what else could go wrong, or why is this happening to me? You will get the answer of why that's happening to you. But if you start to ask yourself questions that are empowering, like, what can I learn from this? What is this trying to tell me? How can I grow from my experience? What am I excited for today? So you can see the energy in those questions is going to shift because it's not going to give you more of those negative answers. So just by asking yourself the right question, you can literally shift the way your brain is processing, which creates, again, stronger connections in your brain, which will make this easier. As you're going through the process, it is important to know that it's like a muscle. So it will take time to build it, to make it feel stronger, to be able to get to this quicker. So in the beginning, it may feel a little uncomfortable because it's new. It may feel challenging to work through this. And that is natural. Think about if you started a weightlifting routine, you would not be able to lift quite as much in the beginning. It might feel awkward. It would feel like it's a little bit more of an effort that you have to put in to get started. But as you get into a routine and you build those habits and you build the muscles to do that, it becomes easier. So the real big thing here is catching yourself when you have a rumination cycle and then using this tactic to start to rewire your brain and give yourself grace in the process. Again, expect that you will have more negative thoughts. That is inevitable. But know that now, if you can create a different process every time you have that, you can literally create a different reality. And the more you strengthen the connections to change and shift the way your brain is working and your mind is moving, then you will start to create different patterns in your life. And it becomes this ripple effect in every aspect of your life. So again, I just want to share again the 3 letters that you need to remember. It's IRA, interrupt, rewire, and ask. So again, interrupt can be, is that true? Or using your body to tap into your senses to change the way you're thinking. R is for rewire. R is going to be focusing on things that you have to be grateful for, no matter how big or how small. And then A is ask. Ask a different question. Ask a question that is going to elicit some kind of empowering response, something that will move you forward, something that will feel good by the answer, not just continue on the same cycle. So I hope this helps you to start to rewire your brain, start to move away from that negative thinking that you've maybe felt stuck in, and start to create different patterns in your mind, in your body, and in your life. Thank you so much for joining me today.